Okay, it's hopefully going to be a bit of a short take on what I think should happen in the Ukrainian war, Russia-Ukrainian war. Basically, peace. It's what everyone should be asking for. Everyone should be saying what could actually achieve peace. Instead, everybody's saying, how can one side win? And that is obviously not the route to peace, is it? It's just continuation of war. Like, to be honest, sending tanks to Ukraine, I think it's next to meaningless. Really, it does just prolong the war. I mean, where to start, really? Let's just start with what is the actual, let's ignore things, all the propaganda, all the stupid notions about, kind of Russia trying to take over the world, or what people are saying that what really matters is Ukrainians' sovereignty. I don't think anyone cares about that other than the Ukrainians. But let's look at some underlying brute realities. Number one, the Donbass is mostly full of Russian people. Russian speakers, ethnically Russian. Ukraine, since 2014, is ultra-nationalist, anti-Russian. Go look it up. One of the first things they did when they went to power, the nationalists, was remove Russian as an official language, remove all the laws protecting it, made it illegal to, basically have it have it taught, have it spoken in public areas, in public institutions and stuff. They went after the Russian culture, and the Donbass rebelled. There's probably so many different layers to that, including Russian influence. Obviously, the Donbass doesn't rebel without Russian support. But look at where we are now. So let's have this crazy fantasy that somehow Ukraine, with a smaller military and less money, could win against a nuclear-armed Russia, and it pushes Russia out of the Donbass. The people in the Donbass don't want Ukraine to rule them, and they didn't want them in 2014. Fucking hell, now they will not accept Ukrainian rule. There's no victory there. The victory that is paraded through the Western media is a fallacy. It can't come to be, even if the military side is taken away from it. The end result would not be a lasting, peaceful situation. And then look at the Crimea. People say, a victory would be Ukraine retaking Crimea. Something that I think would trigger a nuclear response from Russia. But let's again ignore that, pretend they happen to lose their nukes, and an army 3 times as powerful, with 3 times the weaponry, in an incredibly defensive situation, somehow manages to lose, and the Ukrainians take Crimea. That removes the only warm sea port for Russia. One of the biggest countries in the world, not just geographically, but militarily, economically, and it doesn't have a warm sea port. Like, where's its other ports? Over by Korea, or up in the fucking Arctic. You can't be shipping your trade to. So imagine if they want all the trade and resources going to Africa, has to go all the way around, out of the Arctic and all the way down, and all the way around Britain, or the other way, has to go all the way past Japan, to US allies, Britain, Japan, all the way around India. It's catastrophic to the commerce of that nation. It would no longer have a sea route to the Middle East, to Africa, to the Mediterranean. Come on, it's just not. It's not a viable situation for the state the size of Russia. That's why the war is being fought. Because Russia, for 200 years or more, has had Crimea and has built its economy around it. When it's part of the Soviet Union, it obviously still had Crimea. It should have never given it to Ukraine. That is the first point, really. It shouldn't have happened. That's why this war is being fought. So those are the realities. One, the Donbass doesn't want to be in Ukraine. That isn't propaganda. There's lots of propaganda involved, I'm sure. How we got to this situation, I'm sure, on both sides. I think, personally, America funded nationalists who hijacked the democratic revolution, created a civil war. And the world should have stopped that civil war turning into this. But it didn't. Actively propelled it into this. So, in my opinion, peace, the only workable peace, is that the world accepts Russia has control of the Donbass, has Crimea. And then you'll have to turn to Ukraine and say, well, how do you win out of this, out of that situation? Why did probably by now about 120,000 of your men die? So you could get a worse deal than what the Minsk agreements were. Obviously, this is not good. And there is this huge tragedy for Ukraine. So, about the only way you can balance it in a real workable way is the Europeans and the Americans give Ukraine the $500 billion of Russian reserves that are sat in their banks, that are sat in the SWIFT international banking system, that they have effectively stolen. Russia is invading a sovereign nation. Europe's stealing $500 billion. Well, America is stealing $500 billion off another sovereign nation. So that's a reality. And if it's potentially not viable to give them that $500 billion, because maybe a lot of it is owned by Russian people who have really got no say in what's happened and they're going to feel hard done by, then maybe set up a system where Russia provides Ukraine with very cheap gas for a certain period of time. Maybe America releases that dollar reserves back to Russia on the basis that it's provided cheap gas to Ukraine. Clearly, Ukraine will want to be part of NATO. I don't think Russia can really say anything about that. If you right now said, you've got the Donbass, you've got Crimea, you've lost $500 billion, Ukraine's in NATO. That, if people really hammered that home, it was workable. I think actually the Russians would accept it. I think they'd probably put in a caveat that Ukraine can't place any forces east of the Dnipro, which would be fair. No need to have them there anyway. The Dnipro is a good barrier with a NATO army on the other side. On the western side, a NATO army on the western side of the Dnipro, Russia will never get through that. Never. Not without the use of nuclear weapons, which everyone knows would be the end of the world. So, and they have virtually nothing to gain either from taking the rest of Ukraine. They really don't. The Crimea is what they wanted, and the industrial heartlands, which is the Donbass. They don't need anything else. And that would stop the bloodshed. Because right now everyone is going war. Everyone's getting really excited about the tanks, counter-attacks, the offensives. Spring is going to open up like hell, like a gateway to hell. For what? The Russians won't lose. They will keep grinding their way until they take the Donbass and have it secured. So what I am suggesting will come to pass. But probably another 100,000 people have to die. And that's just the people literally dying in the battles. There's probably another 500,000 people fighting in those battles, crippled for life, emotionally scarred for life, who will go home, beat their wives, and the violence just spirals off. And then all the people who have been displaced, lives ruined. People with refugees, lives ruined. And then not to mention all the economies around the world collapsing under the crazy inflationary pressures of this war. All the lives ruined. So really, everyone needs to stop waving the flags and getting fucking caught up in what is insanity. And just say, look, this is a way to stop this. Russia has a Donbass, Crimea. Ukraine has $500 billion. The world helps Ukraine get right back on its feet. A NATO army sits in the west of Ukraine. Chill the fuck out. Chill the fuck out. And then we can stop sending tanks. We can start sending fucking aid. You can start rebuilding their lives. Gas prices would plummet. Inflation would plummet. Cost of living would plummet. There would be a fucking blossoming of the international fucking commerce, because China's about to open up. It would be, completely revolutionary. And billions of people would benefit. But instead, no one's asking for it, are they? Nobody. Everyone is asking for more war. More war. Like, we can win, we can win, we can win. It's a bit like the football, isn't it? You win, but then next year you just do it again. You win, and next year you do it again. It's this endless cycle. It's the same with war, really. It's an endless cycle of violence. And it's because people profit. America's only supported this war because it profits so much. It has profited so much out of this war. Like, the people who control America, because it is just, it's effectively imperial army with a society attached to it. And they've, those arms manufacturers have just sold sold about $1 trillion worth of arms, getting their society to pay them $1 trillion to provide arms. They're a massive wheat and oil exporter, and they've both absolutely skyrocketed. Europe now doesn't get cheap gas from Russia, so it's now hooked to the US economy for the liquefied gas that's coming. So great. Geopolitical control of Europe. Things that people are not talking about as well. Germany, 100 billion already on its defence, ramped up its defence budget. Japan, the same, has suddenly changed from relatively pacifist, tiny military budget. They're ramping up the military budget, and no one wants to think about that. Two of the world powers that were at the heart of World War II suddenly militarizing like fucking crazy. It's not good. This is not where the world needs to be going. Like, we're facing environmental catastrophe and everyone is banging on about tanks. Quite possibly one of the least efficient things in the world. Just 60 tons. You're driving 60 tons around for one purpose alone, which is destroy stuff. So then you have to rebuild it again. It's like insanity. But there's no one who can stand up and be, that's enough. Stop the fighting. Split the land. Let all the people in Ukraine who are Russian speakers, who want to leave Ukraine, move to the Donbass. All the people who are Ukrainian in the Donbass don't want to be there, move over. Just fucking stop it. But it's only the people who profit from these wars that are pumping. It's just, I don't know why everyone else is listening there. I really find it incredible why everyone keeps listening. And the same thing happens every war since Iraq and Afghanistan. 20 years now of war after war. And each one, when it happens, there's a group of people who say, no, the reasons for why this war is happening aren't what people are saying, it's all lies, this is a disaster. But everyone's like, no, war. And then the disaster happens, the lies are shown to be lies, and everyone's like, oh, God, yeah, how do we get mugged? And then the next war starts, And the same people go, no, 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 it's lies, it's all bollocks, it's lies. And everyone's like, no, 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 whoa, 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 oh, how do we... It's like a fucking... just... It's insane. It's insane. I don't know what it is about war that seems to literally drop the IQ of everyone. Just right off a cliff.